Welcome, guys. Welcome to 20s Decoded. My name is Arjun, and I'm joined by my good friend Penelope. We kind of started this podcast with the goal in mind to help people and recent college graduates navigate their 20s, right? Through through their adventures after post college, heading towards jobs, changing careers, relationships, etc. Penelope, do you want to add a little bit to this?
Yeah, I think that we can say that we really believe in authenticity and vulnerability. And so the thing is that we really want to share our own experiences so that maybe if we can help even one person navigating this super interesting life period that is your 20s, it would be worth it.
Right. This is kind of been a passion project between us both. Like we've been wanting to start this for some time, and I can't believe a culmination of 2 to 3 months of work. Like it was like when we were discussing in San Diego, like it feels like it was yesterday, right? Like I was driving down the I-5, just talking about these crazy cool ideas that we wanted to talk with our audience or like anybody that will listen to us.
Yeah, I perfectly remember. I think that it was at Torrey Pines. We were just like, it was a nice hike. We were just like talking during like 1, 2 hours. And then at the
Yeah.
end of the conversation, we looked at each other and just said, we should have recorded that.
But I can't believe we actually started it. And wow, here we are. So what are we trying to discuss today? Like what's our goal in mind for this podcast?
Yeah, I think that today we want to discuss basically the conversation that we were having during this hike at Torrey Pines, which
Hmm.
was the post-university reality check, meaning when you come out of university, you look for a job and then you just kind of left on your own, which is super different from all the patterns that you've had previously because you were at high school, so then you wanted to go to college. And then college, either you go find a job or you go back to university for graduate school. But then after that, you just like, I need to find a job. I need to build my life. I need to find my group of friends. And so and there is nothing written on this part of your life. I mean, when you grow up, you go from exam to exam and so on. So you have
Hmm.
everything is laid down. But once you come out of university, you don't know what to do.
Uh-huh. So what during your period, like when you were in college and you were going taking all your exams and whatnot, and I know this was back in France, right? How did that kind of navigate? How did you get to your first job? Like what landed you in your a role and how did it lead to where you are today?
Yeah, so everything was super fast paced because so I went out of high school and then I went to college. So it was in France. And then
Uh-huh.
right after that, I went to New York for my graduate degree. And
Yeah.
then I did an internship in the finance industry because it was right in the middle of COVID. It was the first thing that
Hmm.
for which I had an offer. So I had to take it. In the middle of COVID, when you have an offer, you
Hmm.
take it. You don't really have a choice. And so that's why I ended up in finance. But to be honest,
All
I was
right.
not really passionate about finance. And so I graduated from Colombia, and then I ended
Uh-huh.
up going back there working in finance for
Uh-huh.
my first full-time job. And 2 months in, I was just like, I cannot. I'm sorry. it's it's not who I am because the
Uh-huh.
thing is that I was working in finance during my day job, but during my free time, quote unquote, I was
Yeah.
just listening to podcasts, watching YouTube videos, reading books about everything that relates to life science, meaning
Hmm.
like everything that relates to health, to healthcare, to just like health practices, fitness, and so on. And I was just like, maybe I can do that in my day job instead of doing it in my spare time. And so
Yeah.
that's when I started reading more books and so on. And
Uh-huh.
it's a very long story, but I ended up listening to a podcast by on which the founder of our company was interviewed. And
Right.
then I read his book. I reached out to somebody on LinkedIn who worked at this company. And 1 month later, I was hired. So it was just like, you kind of, it's not, it's maybe like some of it is luck, but some of it is because I knew that I was interested in working in life science. And so I,
Hmm.
I got interested in it. I read the podcast, I read the books, I listened to
Uh-huh.
the podcast, and I ended up where I am today, which is great.
Oh, I know. Like I enjoy working with you. Like even like today, like for our listeners, honestly, like so like Penelope and I, like we worked together. We're on the same team, but like we didn't even start talking to each other until like about like a month in, right?
And do you remember how we started talking together? Like the first time I think it's kind of funny. Do you remember?
No, I don't actually. Can you jog my memory, please?
Yeah. Okay. So I think that it was one day at the office. You were
Yeah,
just coming. So you go to the gym in the morning. So you
yeah.
you were coming back from the gym with your shaker in your hand, and I was doing my mobility exercises from my shoulder with like an elastic band, and we just looked at each other. Just like, I know you know.
Oh my God. I was like, what are you doing? Can I try that like workout? Like, or what did I say to that? Like,
Just like, "Oh, that looks fun. I just went to, I just you were just a bit like, that's interesting. What is this girl doing at the office with some elastic bands?"
I mean, now look at where we are. Like that stretching in the middle of the office, like has led us to here. Oh God. Oh man. That's close to 2 years ago, Penelope.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, but so
Wow.
what did you do before your before this job? Because you had several jobs before, right?
Yeah. So, I mean, like a long story short kind of thing. Like you, like I went directly from high school to undergrad. And with me, like I kind of had a passion for the sciences. I personally like wanted to go to med school right in when I went to college, but I had a passion for math at the same time. So I thought like the best way to combine both of my passions of medicine and math is like biomedical engineering. And to say the least, like it was a very difficult journey through undergrad, taking like an average of 18 to 21 credits a year, sorry, a semester, and then like just having no free time to be honest. And like I made a lot of good friends through the process, but it was very tough. And at the end of undergrad, I was I was at this point where it was entering to my spring semester, or not even entering my spring semester. This is actually in the fall semester of my senior year. And I was like wondering, what are the next steps for me, right? I wanted to go to med school, but to be honest, like I just didn't have the GPA at the time. And like my GPA was not like at the as on the level of like what typical med students apply with. And I thought like, okay, so like I'm at this position, I just don't know where I want to go with my career. And personally, I thought like I love to learn, I love to read, and I was like wondering maybe I should pursue a graduate degree. So that's where I started doing research, and biostats actually landed. And it's like I said before, like I have a passion for both medicine and math, and that also led me to biostats, where I did my graduate program, my graduate degree in biostats, and from there I landed an internship at Pfizer and they're in their statistical programming and analytics group. So I stayed there for about a year and a half, and I honestly like going through that whole process. I wasn't sure whether I wasn't too happy with it. Like it was kind of like the first internship that kind of landed in my lap. And to be honest, I didn't even like apply for other internships because this was like the go-to kind of like program right out of grad school. Like a lot of people say that Pfizer's this big company, and this is right before even the pandemic had started. So like this is a big company, and they were really like they're very well known. It's like one of the top like three pharmas in the world. So I was like, this is a great opportunity. Let me just pursue it without thinking to apply to other programs as well.
Yeah.
And yeah, so like,
And
sorry, go ahead.
you moved coast. Also, you are from the East Coast, and it was on the West Coast, this one.
Yes. So pretty much like I kind of wanted to start a new leaf and like the new locations that they were offering me was not like at least on the East Coast were not like attractive to me. So I said, screw it. Why not like move to the West Coast and try something new, right? I personally have never been to Cali before I moved there. And to say the least, like I loved my time over there. I became a surfer. I loved to I started hiking and I made a new group of friends out there and I really did enjoy my time. And but unfortunately, the pandemic had started like while I was like in my first year at Pfizer, and I moved back to my parents' home in Jersey, where I thankfully I got to save up a little bit of money while I was living at home, and yeah, stayed home for a year, and like during that process, I kind of like was wondering like, is this job really me? Like I felt kind of like a tiny like part of Pfizer, and like the best way I can describe it is like this: I'm like this tiny cell, this cell, one cell, right, part of this massive organism, right, and this organism takes like millions and billions of cells to operate, like to function. But like where I like this one little cell does, I don't feel like I'm contributing that much and making a profound impact. So what I wanted to do was I wanted to search for a different company and see if I can make a like and make a more uh looking for like that some looking for a company that aligns with my interest as well, whereas I'm able to help them. And lo and behold, I land up at Metadata about like 2 or 3 months before you had joined, and the rest is history, right? So
Yeah.
we've been here for like the last 2 years. We work on the same team, and yeah,
Yeah,
it's a, it's yeah.
that's
Go ahead.
interesting what you're saying, because I think that in both our stories there is
Uh
kind
huh.
of this fear of missing out, where basically you get an opportunity which by every standard is an amazing opportunity. So you cannot really say no. But we're still pretty young. So we're just like, yeah, okay, we need to go there. But is it really aligned with our values and what we want for ourselves? And it requires some strength to say at some point, okay, no, maybe I need to change jobs. Maybe I need to change location. I need to move from the East Coast to the West Coast or the reverse. And so it can be super scary when you're only in your
Yeah.
20s, super young, and you don't really know what you want to do with your life. You have this fear of missing out because everybody is saying, yeah, you're out of university, you need to get this kind of job to earn this kind of money. And you're just like, is it really what I want? So there is
hmm
this little wake up call that you have. And once you have this wake up call,
Yeah.
what are you going to do with it? Because you feel it in your guts, you know?
Yeah, like, to be honest, though, like, when I joined my first job, I didn't have a fear of joining that first job, like, I kind of, like, I was very excited, I was very optimistic, right? I'm joining this massive company with so much potential opportunities, and I was like, "Okay, maybe there's a way for me to explore the different programs that they're offer inside." And it honestly, like, a lot of these companies, at least for me, my experience, right, it's very hard to find, like to explore a different areas. Like you can reach out to people, you can talk to people, right? But you don't get like I didn't have that truly have that wake up call until about like a year and a half in. I'm like, wow, do I really enjoy what I'm doing right now? And like as like you're young in your career, you're like 20 something, you're 22, 23 years old, coming out of college, you're making like you join a company that like well, for both of us, we both got like hired right out of college and we joined our companies with like no expectations whatsoever. I tried to keep like an open mind when I'm approaching something, and I truly did not like figure out until about a year and a half in that like I was like, I'm not happy here. I don't feel like I'm making that impact that I want to, and I'm not doing what I can like I can make a bigger impact or bigger splash at a different company. So like I had that wake up moment about a year and a half in, and like I was like, wow, like that really like forced me, or like maybe I was like a late bloomer that I did my research later on. And I was like, okay, maybe now is the time to actually like look and see what I want to do with my life. Like I took a job and I saw it was paying money and it was like a lot more money than I ever seen in my entire life. And I'm like, let me run with it. Let me see where it takes me. And to be honest, like I don't regret taking like looking back, right? Like we're like a good like 4 or 5 years into our own careers, right? Or 3 to 5 years, sorry. And like I'm just thinking back, maybe like I should change something, or like do I regret anything? And I don't, because it's kind of like everybody goes about their own career at their own way, right? Like whether it be joining a job or applying to millions of jobs, like at the first step, right? But like everybody has like a journey that leads them to this first job, and maybe that first job is like their own wake up call, right?
Yeah.
So like for you, for example, like I would love to hear like when did you have that wake up call? Like was it like during your job, or did you like take some time off to discover like what you wanted to do after your first
No,
job?
no, so it was pretty early on, to be honest, because I lasted exactly 2 months in finance,
Uh-huh.
working full time in finance. So, so it was pretty early on, and it was,
Uh-huh.
to be very honest, it was a very difficult period in my life, just because, like, physically, I was like, my body was telling me, "This is not right for you." I was not sleeping at night, like, um, it was pretty bad. Like,
Uh-huh.
one friend told me, I think it was 1 month ago, that she was actually really scared for me
Mhm.
because my skin was yellow, and I was just
Oh
like,
my god.
no, honestly, it was really, really, really bad, and it's really like this misalignment. At some point, I perfectly remember I was in France, at that time when I had this wake up call, and my mom just came to me and just said, that you're a bit weird. You've been a bit weird during the past 2
Uh-huh.
weeks. Is there something going on?"
So she knew that there was something going on,
Yeah,
like
yeah,
you were off your game. You were not on like your A
exactly.
stuff. Yeah.
She told me, "You're supposed to be super excited. You're going to have this amazing job in finance, but
Uh-huh.
I don't understand why don't you seem happy?" And I just
Mhm.
cried. Like everything, just like I
Uh-huh.
cried, and I think that I cried for maybe like 2 hours. And right after that, I was just like, I need to find something else.
Uh-huh.
I really, really need to find something else. And it's actually it's pretty funny because it's so it goes back to when I was in high school.
Mhm.
I had this conversation with my math teacher asking me,
Uh-huh.
"Oh, what do you want to do later for your career?" And I was just, okay, I want to go to New York and I want to work in finance.
Mhm.
And I perfectly remember that she looked at me straight in the eyes, saying, "Are you really sure that's what you want?" And at that time, I was just, "Yeah, of course, that's what I want."
You just blew it off, right?
I
Like you
just blew
just
it
like
up.
yeah.
But during this wake up call, maybe like a couple of years later, like 5, 6 years later,
Mhm.
she was right. She was right.
So she knew even before. Honestly, I think like learning on your own, like she knew way in advance, right? And she never told you, right? Like she never said that maybe the side by might not be the right career path. She just said that like, are you sure?
Yeah.
Insinuating that like, are you really, really sure? But then you realize it on your own, which is kind of like a beauty in it as well, right? You kind of discovered your own wake up call. You had your own wake up call, and you were able to say, okay, I've tried this. It's not for me. Let me move on to my next. Let me move on to something I truly have a passion for, which led you to this company, right?
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, exactly. But I think
Uh-huh.
that really taking like there are kind of 3 steps that we've outlined. The first one is
Mhm.
you have this fear of missing out, or you're just like in the conveyor belt, you know. You go from
Yes.
step to step to step, not really asking questions, just because it's what society expects of you. It's why your
Yes.
parents expect of you, or it is what you expect of you.
Hmm.
And then, second step, you have this wake
Hmm.
up call. And just like, "Oh my god, is it really what I want? Is it really what I'm passionate about? Do I
Yeah.
really live in the city that I want to live in?"
Hmm.
And then third step, which is maybe the hardest one, once you've noticed that you're not in the right place for you, what are you going to do about it? And this is the step, and this is the step that requires the true strength. What did you do like for this third step? What once you've noticed that you were not at the right place for you?
Honestly, I kind of so like during my time at Pfizer, I was able to meet a lot of amazing people out there, and I actually was able to meet a mentor of mine. And at the time, she was at the head of medical analytics at the company, and I told her like I was lost, I didn't know what to do, I wanted to apply to new jobs, and this current field that I feel I was in back then, I was not happy. I was not doing the work that I wanted to. So luckily for me, she has a huge network, an array of people that like I can reach out to, like let me find jobs that jobs and companies that I could make an impact at. And she knew the chief medical officer at the company at the time that we currently work at, and she was able to put in a good word for me, and he was able to refer me to a position where later on I didn't get to originally hire for the position that I wanted to, but or not the position I wanted to, the position that he thought I would be best fit in, but eventually ended up in a different group where I still am happy that I'm making these steps and strides to making the world a better place. Like my true passion, like ever since I was in high school, I knew that I've always wanted to help out people, right? In any way possible. And the passion, like that passion lined up with my interest in medicine and in math, and like I'm able to combine all those passions into this one company and able to make an actual difference in lives, right? I mean, like we work with this amazing company and making this amazing difference out there, and I truly am like happy where I am. Like I was in that boat, like I will say though, like when I was at Pfizer, I was like I was doing that as well, but I don't think I was being utilized to the best of my abilities.
Ye-
So it was like more so of like yours was like more so of an industry change, right? Whereas me is more of a role change and figuring out like how I can contribute even more to my group.
Yeah, that makes total sense. And so I
Mhm,
think that there are really 2 points in what you just said that are super important and that have been
mhm.
super important in my journey as well. The
Yeah.
first one is that you need to reach out to people who can help you.
Yes.
You need to have some mentors. You need to have, and even if it's not like mentors, when I say mentors, I mean people you can learn from. It's not
Mhm,
necessarily people that you've met. For me, it was people on the internet, by
mhm.
listening to podcasts, by reading books. But basically, when you're interested in a topic, you just
Mhm,
pick like one, two, three people that are really, really good, not only in the topic, but also at
mhm,
explaining what about the topic
mhm.
that you're interested in and what can they bring to the table for you. And you learn as much as
Yeah.
you can about them and you let them help you. For you, it was a real person who helped
Right.
you. For me, it was just like by listening to podcasts. So
So
there is.
uh-huh. Sorry to cut you off. I'm genuinely curious. Like, I was hoping that you could expand upon this, right? Like, so when you were transitioning to this from finance to the life sciences industry, right? Like, when you were listening to podcasts, like, I know like a lot of our listeners will probably be coming out of college and they will be wondering, like, well, like, I'm not even in my first job yet. Like, where can I find a mentor in the field, or like, what can I use as like how can find someone as like a guide to what like I genuinely like in helping me figure out which field I want to even like join. Do you have any like recommendations to that?
Yeah, so I would say that for me, like 2 steps were really, really important. The first one
Mhm.
was just figuring out what were the topics I was interested in. So it was, for me, it was everything that relates to life science.
Right.
So by just like it was kind of a flywheel of podcasts
Mhm.
for me because I started listening to the Huberman Lab podcast, and
Yeah.
then it led me to another podcast, another podcast, another podcast, which eventually led me to this podcast on which the founder of Medidata was interviewed. And so it's just like because
Wow.
I was curious about this specific topic in life science. And then, like branching, you have like this tree of knowledge when you have like this podcast, and then somebody else is interviewed on the podcast, and this person looks interesting. So then you listen to this person's
Right.
podcast, and then which brings you to another one. Of course, you cannot go on every branch, but you take the
Mhm.
ones that are interesting for you. And then you end up just like discovering something which might seem some luck.
Mhm.
I'm kind of lucky that I found this podcast with
Right. You kind of went
That,
down the rabbit hole and then
yeah,
basically landed up at this podcast and you were able to like this is how you discovered what you truly wanted to do,
yes,
right?
yes, exactly. So that's the first step, just like being
Uh-huh.
curious. You find the topic you're interested in, and it might require some just like trials, errors, and just like, oh, that's not what I wanted to do. It does not really matter. You find another topic, you learn about it, and maybe
Uh-huh.
it might be the one. And so once you've found like this topic, you've acquired a bit of knowledge about it, you need to reach out to people. You need to reach out
Hmm.
to people in real life, which for me, it's meant just going on LinkedIn, typing the name of the company on LinkedIn. And
Hmm.
then I saw the results that I had
Yeah.
and I just messaged people. I
I
just
do have to say though, like I know like a lot of people do the reaching out through LinkedIn, like, and I want you to like, can you explain to us like how many responses did you get back from doing that? Like, were you able to get like everybody responded back, or is there only
yeah.
one person? Like, I know a lot of people have like very different chances of getting response rates back. It's like, what was yours?
Yeah, I think that mine was actually pretty high. It was in the 80%.
Oh wow,
So, but
wow.
I think that the reason for that is you do not only need to reach out on LinkedIn to people working at the companies you're interested in. You
Mm-hmm.
need to give them a reason why they should answer to you.
Right.
And for me, it was just saying, "Hey, I listened to this podcast about your company," just like
Mhm.
explaining a little bit what I learned. And at this time, ChatGPT does not exist. But
Mhm.
please do not copy paste the summary of any podcast or book from ChatGPT because we notice it.
No, it's great though. Like you brought up a really good point, right? Like especially when you're reaching out to these people and these companies, right? You can always like ask for a job, but nobody's ever going to respond back to that. They have a true passion and like love for their certain field, right? So you want to like pique their interest, right? Like you want to start a conversation with them, right? Like how you and I are having a conversation. You want to ask like an interesting question, or you want like more elaboration on a problem that they're trying to solve, right? And this is like how you get the conversation started, and this is how they get a gain an interest in you, right?
Yeah, yeah, I completely agree because I strongly believe that at their core, people want to help.
Mhm.
They just don't really have the time. And so if you give them just the extra reason why they should answer to you,
Mhm.
it makes all the difference. I have people reaching out to me on LinkedIn every single day, and I
Mhm.
try to answer to every one of them. But sometimes I I don't really want to because I don't really have any good reason to do it and I don't have the time.
Mhm.
But when somebody actually says, "Oh, I read this article that I wrote that you wrote or I listened to
Mhm.
this podcast," um it means that it's not just like a copy pasted message. It means that you
Right.
just actually spend some time writing the message and
Mhm.
actually want to engage, and it makes all the difference.
Mhm. Like, it's, like, from both of our perspectives, right? We get, like, a good number of messages every day, right? You can easily tell when somebody's genuinely interested in your field and when someone is just, honestly, for lack of better terms, like, looking for, like, a job and trying to join the company, right? Join our company. So, like, I love, like, what you said, right? Like, you you do your research, you get a better understanding of what you like by even doing the research on the companies that you're looking at, right? You're able to get a better understanding if you truly want to join that job
Yeah.
or do you want to join that company that does your interest or your goal in mind align with that company's objective and goal as well.
Which kind of companies were you looking for?
So, like for me personally, I wanted to stay in the life sciences pharma industry. It kind of it ties into my goal of helping people, helping patients, and tying in science with that, right? I truly have a love for science, and like I always bring up bio and everything like that when I think of like at work and whatnot. But like I wanted to stay in that industry. In terms of my roles, like I personally say, don't shut a role out until you truly try it, right? And obviously, there are certain roles that you just don't want to do, but don't shut out the roles that you just don't have any clue about, right? Like for my first job, right? I was programming and I was behind the screen 24/7. And to be honest, that's just not a type of person that I truly am. I like to interact with people. I like talking to people. And as soon as I got this job as well, took this role. I started talking to a bunch of people. I work with different stakeholders, different parts of the company, and I'm not yet client facing, but like having being able to talk to all these people is like a great opportunity for me to like give like to explain this, right? I'll explain the issues at hand, explain our product and what we're trying to do with this. I would love to hear from your perspective, like what was your journey like, and how did you like? Please do elaborate for me.
But I want to help people live a healthy life and to use my skills in math, in data science,
Mm-hmm.
in order to help them achieve these goals. So working
Yeah.
at this company, we are analyzing clinical trials data.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm definitely using my my data science and math
Yeah.
skills.
Uh-huh.
Um, but that being said, so that's my kind of landmark goal that I have. But
Mm-hmm.
no, the question that I asked myself was, knowing that I had these landmark goals, what what are the little sub goals or the little steps that I can take in order to
Yeah.
help me reach this goal? And for me,
Uh-huh.
it means learning something new every day. So that's something that I wanted for my job, is a job where I can not only apply my skills, but also learn something new every single day. So that,
Right.
for instance, when you work on a project, yes, you want to have like to build your machine learning model and so on. But if you're doing the exact same thing and using your university skills every single day, like 2 years, 2 years 2 years into your job, you're gonna have the same skills. So the way I
Mm-hmm.
see it is just every project, or mainly like every day I'm working, I try to learn at least one thing that I did not know when I woke up.
Mm-hmm.
It
Have
can
you
be a
found that successful in your current
yes,
job? Like,
yes, definitely. Because it can be something that is like from the technical standpoint, or
mm-hmm.
something more on the soft skills side. For instance, like right now, we are
Uh-huh.
practicing our like public speaking skills.
Yeah.
It's just it's like you pick and choose, but every single day, if you can become like 0.0000001% better,
Yes.
at the end of the day, it compounds. And I know that some days you will be able to be 10% better. You will
Mm-hmm.
achieve like those amazing landmarks results, and then it will be 10%. Some
Yeah.
days maybe you haven't slept, and so on, it will be like 0.0001%, but in the
Mm-hmm.
end you're still getting better. And it can mean only just like going on the internet and reading a 2-minute article about a topic
Mm-hmm.
you're interested in. It can be as simple as that.
The beauty is that also like I think like with like AI coming to fruition like these last couple of years, like every industry out there is constantly changing, and learning is the key step to keeping up with this, right? Like I know that we incorporate Bard and Gemini and ChatGPT into our everyday jobs, right? Whereas like when we first joined the company, this did not exist, right? And like how do you use these tools to make you better, and like learning in general, right? Like learning all these new different tools, like you take the different tools that are presented to you every day and excel at your job, right? You want to show that you are up with the times and you're keeping up with pace, not even for your job, but just to keep up in general, like in life, right?
Yeah, I completely agree, and I think that especially in the past 2 years, I've clearly seen a difference. When I look back 2 years ago, it was really, so you had like those people who were data scientists, who are really, really good at doing data stuff. People
Yeah.
who are really, really good at doing like client facing things. People who
Hmm.
are really, really good at marketing. But now you have those LLMs, those large language models, and they are very, very good at all those things, which
Hmm.
means that as users of those LLMs, we need to have two skills. The first one is we need to know how to learn,
Yeah.
and how to learn quickly, because those LLMs, they learn really, really quickly.
Hmm.
And so the skills to know how to learn is really amazing. But then you have this second skill, which is you not only need to know how to learn, but you need to know how to learn about a wide range of topic. Meaning that somebody who was not at all a data scientist, who does not really have a background in math or data science, is now able to do some analysis using ChatGPT, like those custom GPTs or Gemini and so on. And it's absolutely amazing because it means that somebody who is working, let's say, in sales or marketing can, in front of a client, just like do some data analysis that was before only available if there was a data scientist right next to it, right
Yeah.
next to this person. But on the other side, you also have like data scientists who just like do those amazing analysis and so on. But then when it comes to just presenting the results to somebody who is not necessarily on the technical side,
Hmm.
it also requires a great amount of skills to know how to explain some technical concepts in non-technical words, but without giving like taking away too much information. And
Right.
thanks to those LLMs, you can actually do it. I mean, I do it every day, just like I do. Oh,
Hmm.
how would you explain this concept to a 5 years old? How would you explain this
Right.
concept to a physician? And then
Right.
you can just like it actually bridges the gap between technical users and non-technical users. And it's a skill that you absolutely need to learn.
Hmm. So, like, let's go back to like where we had started, right? Like, we started with this three topics that we wanted to keep in mind, right? This kind of conveyor belt lifestyle, right? Like, from high school to college slash university to like the first job, right? We discussed that. We discussed maybe like our wake up call moments, right? The different moments in our lives where we're like, shoot, oh my god, like maybe this is something I just don't want to do, right? And then like thirdly, we discuss what the misalignment is, like what we are doing right now and what we want to do. It's kind of tied in with that wake up call in general, right? So do you kind of want to like give any final thoughts onto that itself?
Yeah, I think that if you were to just remember one thing from
Yeah.
what we just said, it would be curious. Just
Uh-huh.
it's not because you're out of university that you need to forget what it's like to be a student.
Hmm.
Just keep this student mindset because by just learning new things, you will meet new people. You will discover some topics you did not even know that you were interested in. And then it might be the next step for your next career move. It might be your next step for, I don't know, like the next city that you're going to be living in.
Hmm.
So that's the first thing. Keep this student mindset. And
So
then,
keep
yeah,
on learning, be willing to learn, right? Like
yeah,
the learning doesn't stop in university. The learning will still keep going, right? And it's kind of like a part-time job to your full-time job, right? You
yeah,
need to keep learning to excel and get better at, right? Like if like I mean like what we just discussed, right? Chat or Bard or sorry, Gemini and Chat GPT, they improve efficiency as well, right? You take out that middleman, you're able to become better at it. So like efficiency, having that student mindset is key to going throughout life, right?
yeah.
Sorry, I cut you off. You were saying?
Yeah. And I think that the second one is really about just you need to be aware that nobody has totally figured out what they want to do.
Mhm.
Everybody is still figuring out what they want to do with their life. So it's okay to be 23 years old and to be completely lost because you don't even know which industry you want to be
Mhm.
working in and so on. You have the time to figure it out. But in
Mhm.
order to figure it out, you actually need to try some things. So just
Yeah.
first thing, be curious, and
Mhm.
second thing, be bold and take initiatives.
Mhm.
And maybe you will try, maybe you will fail, but actually, it's not really a failure because you will learn.
So you're absolutely right. Like hell, a lot of people even like in their 30s don't even know if they truly like what they're doing, right? So you have to keep that curious, open-minded mindset to on everything that you do around you, right? Hell, maybe the job that you don't like, your first job, you might not like what you do, so you move on to the next job, and then maybe you don't like the stuff that you do in that job, so you can move on to the next one. It's completely okay to change industries and fields. It's like an ever growing field. As long as you show, like honestly, like a lot of these recruiters and interviewers, they want to know if you really want to learn. Are you really ready to become like willing to put the extra step, go to the extra mile to learn about what they're doing and to help them accomplish that goal? There's nobody that said nobody knows everything when they go into their first job. That is definitely not true. We are still learning to this day. And I'm still like personally me and I think you as well, Penelope. We don't know everything that like all the capability like all the stuff that we can do in our job. We're still learning. There's so much to learn out there, right? But like, I think like what we how we got hired is by like showing that capability of wanting to learn more, that genuine curiosity, right? We have this passion where we just want to help people. We want to get involved in that life sciences industry. And that's what got us like our current jobs. And to say the least, like I think it like paid off really well. I think we're doing exceptional work at the company and I'm pretty proud of like what we have done so far. What did you say yourself?
Yeah, I completely agree. And not only proud of the work that we are doing, but also like the relationships that we are building. I mean,
Mhm.
it thanks to this company, we are just like together today. It's amazing. I can say that
Yeah.
we've become friends. We were colleagues, but just like we've become friends, and that's really amazing. That when you
Mhm.
put like all your heart into what you're doing, you remain curious, you're willing to learn, you're willing to make new connections.
Mhm.
Then you just like you can do everything that you want to do in life because the skills that you've learned about learning means that whatever you decide to do, you
Mhm.
can achieve it.